Folks, today I am joined by Rob Savage, director of films such as Host, Dashcam, and his latest project, The Boogeyman. Thank you so much for your time today, Rob.
Thank you.
So last month I interviewed Andre Vidal, who just did the last voyage of the
Oh yeah.
and I asked him, because this was around the time that the US Senate had these hearings about aliens being real. And I asked him, if myths such as aliens are real, then
Hmm.
why can't stuff like vampires be real? So I kind of want to pose that same thing to you. Now that we live in a world where, these things that we grew up with in the unknown are now being presented to us as, hey, actually, this is real. How do you feel about that as somebody who just made a film about perhaps the most mythic creature that there is?
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I'm not a hugely kind of superstitious person. I think I probably lean on the side of believer when it comes to aliens, but in terms of the supernatural, I'm not really a kind of strong believer in that stuff until I find myself, alone in the dark and I'm hearing a creaky footstep that I can't place, and then suddenly I just believe in all of it. So there's a rational side of my brain that doesn't want to believe it, but as soon as I'm in fight or flight mode, I believe in all of it, the boogeyman and werewolves and vampires and yeah, I could totally see that being the case.
Do you think that makes them more scary or less scary?
I think existing in this space between knowing and knowing that they're real and them being a complete fairy tale. I think that unknown space is the scariest place to be, because it's kind of it's mostly a construction of our own minds, which is the scariest place to be. The thing that we were trying to really tap into in this movie was that great sense of audience participation in the way that movies like Alien or Jaws, they kind of allow you to imagine what's there in the darkness or what's there under the surface. And we really wanted to fill this movie with a lot of darkness and a lot of dark spaces. And, like my empty closet there in the background, a lot of places where evil could be lurking. And without there actually being anything there for most of it, but the audience then, fills in a lot of this with their own minds.
I don't mean to laugh, but I hear you name check Jaws and Alien, and my first thought was really aimed low there, huh?
Yeah. I think you've got to. I mean, that was one of the ambitions with this movie, is to try and you take a character like the boogeyman that everyone has an association with. It's one of these characters that um it's one of the first characters that we come to understand as children, as they're lurking in the darkness of our closets, and it deserves a great movie. There's been a lot of boogeymen movies and none of them have been particularly successful, and we wanted to do something that was aiming at being um you know classy and well made and deserving of that title as being the definitive boogeyman movie.
I don't even know if it's because of a specific boogeyman fear, but even to this day, I'm 30. I still shut every door in my room when I'm going to
Oh,
bed.
you've got to. They're doorways. I mean, they're doorways here in the physical realm, but they're also doorways in the
Mm,
supernatural realm.
So I looked up the etymology of the word boogeyman, and I was struck by how many languages have a word for it. One
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
become particularly relevant in past years is that of Baba Yaga, thanks to John Wick. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how far and wide across different cultures you researched to hone in and create your version and your take on this character.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of different iterations of the creature from across all these different cultures, and it was amazing. Um, there's so many different kind of fears folded into this one title and this one character. And we wanted to make a version of this creature that kind of allowed room for all of those interpretations, that wasn't just that wasn't kind of stepping on any of those. And I know, like, the kind of association of the boogeyman, the kind of Western association of the boogeyman is a much more kind of humanoid creature. A lot of the other boogeyman movies that have come before this one have this kind of like bipedal. It's boogeyman. It's got a long dark coat on and a hat, and it's like that's kind of an image that a lot of people have in their head. And I wanted this to feel much more animalistic and much more primal and much more like something that had been stalking in the darkness since the beginning of time. And we wanted to show enough of this creature that the audience didn't feel shortchanged, but hold enough of it back and suggest, without spoiling it, there's a moment that happens in the finale where you see a kind of hidden dimension to this creature. We wanted to suggest that we wanted to suggest that there was
I literally said to myself, I was, what the fuck, man?
That's what we were going for. I still to this day can't believe we got away with that in a PG-13 movie.
You mean
Yeah.
So you touched on past Boogeyman film, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I could have swore, was there a shot that was an homage to the Babadook? Because there is a shot of the Boogeyman's face that looked just like the character from that film, and I could have swore.
I can't remember what shot you were talking about, but probably yes. I had a huge.
It's when you could just faintly see the white outline of the smile in the eyes, and I was
the smile was definitely influenced by Babadook. I had this huge Bible of like references for the creature and references for the way that the horror would play out, and the Babadook was all over that. And so everyone who was working on the movie, from the VFX people to the cinematographer, would have this kind of like Bible for the scares and the look of the creature and the way that we wanted to light the thing. And Babadook's a huge influence.
And speak of the way that you shot it and lit it, I thought that was one of the biggest strengths of the film. So in terms of that goal, I think that you nailed it.
Yeah, Eli Bourne, just shout out to Eli Bourne, the cinematographer, who's
there you go. Horror has become a fascinating genre in the age of streaming in regards to the fact that it's one of the most consistently bankable. And you're someone perfect to talk to about this, because your film was actually the reverse of what you usually see and was sent from streaming to theaters. I'm curious why you think horror has been able to carve out such a successful niche for itself in these last 5 years or so, whereas something like comedy, which sort of is built on the same tenets of that communal feeling, struggles so much.
I think people are very anxious right now. I think the world is changing, and the world is becoming scarier in a lot of ways. And I think there's a catharsis to horror movies that's always been there through periods of change. I also think it's just one of the most reliable communal experiences. While we're still kind of holding on to this communal experience and scratching our heads over what brings people out of their homes to go and sit in a dark room together, horror, when it works, when it kind of really holds an audience in tension and delivers on scares, and it's one of the best communal experiences you can have, to be watching a movie and feel the whole audience reacting in time with you at the same things, to feel like the movie is playing for 100 people and you're all experiencing the same thing. It's one of the reasons we go to the movies, is to feel connected to other people, is to watch something with a crowd and experience the same emotions. And horror, when it's done well, there's nothing like it.
I am someone who grew up and I was like, I can't do it. But as I've gotten older, I have a real appreciation for it. Rob, I've got a rep here. I'm curious. When I looked you up, I found online that it said your 3 favorite horror films of all time are Evil Dead 2, The Innocents, and Lake Mungo. I just want to check if that's right or not.
That's pretty much, I mean, it changes all the time, but those are the 3 pretty consistent ones.
Do you have one that you would like to add?
I was talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre earlier today. It's an obvious one, but it's one of those movies that every time I go back and rewatch it, it jolts me in a way that no other movie does. I think that movie is viscerally terrifying in a way that nothing else has really touched on. And there hasn't really been a movie like that for a long time. So I'd love to see a bit more of that ferocity enter back into the horror space,
I grin because even Texas Chainsaw has tried to remake itself, but it can't do it. Rob, thank you so much for your time, man. You and I are close in age, so seeing what you're doing at this age is unbelievable. And if they do a Boogeyman 2, do me a solid and please kill off Natalie.
I will. Thanks, man.
Thank you, man.